rainy, windy, cold, unmotivated day for me. That kind of day I had today. So I just had a chat with myself, as I usually do on these kinds of days. And I just basically sold myself on this idea that I was going to come in and have a play. That's literally what this whole training mentality is all about. Does not matter what you're feeling, man, because if you say the right things to your mind and you truly believe that, you're going to come in and mess around. That's the thing with having these types of programs or this type of approach where you just, you're free. You're free from these constraints, these arbitrary restrictions that people put themselves under. So, on normal kind of, minds, most people would have a day off like, today. But I came in and I said to myself, let's mess around, let's play. And so today I decided to, not go to war with heavy ass spin squats, whether they be front rack or back rack. So I went to another idea. I said to myself, I've done front squats, I've done back squats in the pins. Let's do split squats. Let's do the unilateral stuff. I haven't done that in a little while, and so I had a bit of fun with that. Initially, I started off with normal split squats with both feet on the ground. Worked up to, I tried to get 160, couldn't get that. I think then I started messing around with Bulgarian split squats with, rear foot elevated. That was so freaking difficult to stabilize, to balance. There was a bit of kind of interesting to it. It kind of added that flavor that I needed on a day like this, just to kind of mess around. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be sore tomorrow, to be honest, because every time I do unilateral leg work, whether it's reverse lunges, walking lunges, where it's something like this, Bulgarian split squats, any sort, unilateral leg work, I usually get sore in the glutes. Just because it's like a something that you're not used to. But I'm a big fan of unilateral leg work, especially if I was still on the basketball court playing basketball. Most of the sport of basketball, you're running, right? So most of your time you're spending on one leg, one foot. So it makes sense to train that. And, it doesn't really matter how good you are with bilateral kind of squats, front squats, back squats, that kind of stuff. You need to be able to produce power off one foot, because those are the situations you're going to find yourself in. And not only that, but that also kind of protects your knee as well. The ability for your hip to articulate positions, to control the arch of your foot, all that stuff comes into play when you're on one foot. So a lot of value in that. I mean, I don't play basketball anymore. I don't play anything really anymore. I just kind of mess around in the shed, in the garage. So I don't really have a lot of value with that, even though unilateral leg work still has a place for me, but less so, I think, less critically. So I did that. I kind of got really tired with that, man. I don't know, man. Like, it's whenever you're kind of doing a new exercise, the nerves kind of get panicked a little bit. I'm freaking exhausted, man. Definitely didn't kind of expect that, although it makes sense now retrospectively to kind of think about that, because that's exactly what happens when you do something that involves so much balance. It's not just pushing into a bar like a pin squat, where you're kind of really rooted to the ground and to the pins and everywhere. You're kind of stable. This is like completely on the opposite end of the spectrum. You're really unstable and you're trying to produce power. It's a really kind of different challenge. So I did that, went to the back squat, went up to 160. That was all right. And then I still kind of felt like I wanted to do something else. I wanted to kind of play, use today, see how it kind of this kind of evolves. I came in with no energy to do anything, but because I'm free in my thinking, I still wanted to stay around and use today for that, because tomorrow I'll come in feeling fresher or whatever, and I'll get back to the normal schedule, the normal thoughts, the normal kind of getting after pin squats and, that kind of stuff. And so I kind of ended up staying a little longer than expected today. And still thinking about box squats, still thinking about Louis Simmons, still thinking about the conjugate methods, chasing your weaknesses, looking for weaknesses. And then it popped into my head, why don't I try really wide stance squats? So then I ended up doing that. I took really, really wide stance squats. My Lord, did my adductors get lit up from that. I do everything narrow stance, everything. Squat, deadlift, even the box squats that I did, it's all narrow stance. But when I went to the wide stance squats, man, my Lord, like, number one, like, I can't get depth. I really can't get depth. You get to parallel and you feel like you're restricted by I don't know what. Probably the hip is just like, what are you doing? So the bony structures of the hip are not letting you go lower. this is one of the things I don't like about wide stance squats, because you can't get depth. But anyway, it was really, targeting the adductors. The glutes were engaging like hell. The abductors, so that glute med, TFL, I felt that engage. I felt my quads in a weird way as well. Just overall, completely different stimulus. Once again, I'm probably going to be a lot of soreness from that as well. So I'm going to be sore, doubly sore. Split squats and wide stance squats from messing around with these two movements. So I'm up for a really interesting day tomorrow. I've got work tomorrow, all day tomorrow. So it's going to be a 4:30 get up and all of that stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how I go tonight and how I sleep and how I wake up. I'm probably going to struggle big time tomorrow. But this is how it goes, like I always tell people, like, this is where you need to have some sort of a self-talk cascade of thoughts. When stuff gets really uncomfortable and you really don't want to go, I still think there's benefits to be had, man. Whatever, like, okay, so you're not up for war. You don't want to go into a boxing ring and go for a slugfest, i.e. do your normal schedule, the pin squats, the block pulls, the heavy squatting, all of that. But there's so much stuff to do, man. So, like, if you say to yourself, I'm going to try something else, all of a sudden there's a fun component to it. You're restarting in a different idea, and you just want to kind of go in and explore, have a play, like a child, right? And so that's kind of what carried me today. I was like, oh, sick, I'm gonna kind of experiment with that a little bit today. And I thought about, the wide stance squats, the pin squats with the split stance stuff. And I had fun. Like, I really had fun today. And I'm glad that I kind of developed these thoughts, because this is the thing about squatting every day, man. Like, a lot of people think I'm some sort of machine, like I've got this iron will or whatever, like I'm some hard ass, whatever people kind of think about me and my streak or whatever. But really, it's just a mental exercise, man. It really is. I've always said it. There's a lot of people out there in much, much, much worse scenarios, situations in life, and they still crack a smile, right? And they still, have better quality of life. They still have this content feeling about them. And then you have people who are, spoon-fed, silver spoon-fed all their life. The girlfriend leaves them at 25 and they're suicidal. They don't want to end it all. It's like the mentality is not there. Like, you don't understand. Like, you haven't kind of built up. You haven't been hit by enough, let's say, bad events in your life. And so when these minor events happen, they score really high on your scale of perceived pain, because you haven't lived, you haven't experienced any hardship. But that person that lives in Syria or somewhere in Africa that's really struggling to find the next meal, their life is like 55-fold worse than your breakup with your girlfriend. And so, for them, that's really a joke. It's not even a talking point, right? It's like, what are we talking about? Why are you wasting your breath? So when you have these types of thoughts in your mind, you think to yourself, oh, you don't want to squat on a rainy, cold afternoon. You don't feel like squatting. It's just like, what are we talking about? Like, there's always something to be done. Anyway, this is how I think about it. Definitely how I grew up and what I do for a living has definitely had an impact on my thought process. But I always say, man, like, if you're going to wait for that day where you feel mint to train, you're not going to get anywhere, man. I don't care what the endeavor is you're thinking about right now. Whether it's a sport, whether it's study, if you're waiting to feel great to do that thing, you're going to fall in the bell curve of 99% of the other people in the world, and you're going to be mediocre at that. Because the people that excel at given endeavors are the ones that suck it up and do it even when they freaking don't want to. That separates the bell curve people with the extremities, with the outliers. Because the outliers, there's something wrong with those guys. Why are they so content putting up with feeling bored, feeling tired, doing something that they don't want to do, feeling pain during the exercise, really feeling the legs burn? What makes them go? And I truly believe that, like, whether it's sports or whether it's career, whether it's family, whether it's relationships, it's just, it's all in the mindset, man. It really is. It's how you perceive the world. If you think you're having the worst thing in life and that's your experience, likely you're going to find it really, really kind of hard to get going. But if you think to yourself, man, just the guy over the fence over there is having a harder time, then you just check yourself and like, come on, man, like let's go. Anyway, there's many different ways to process all of this. Like, I'm not a psychologist freaking trying to tell you how to go about it. I'm just sharing how I kind of view things. So, you know, when I'm having a off day, or when I'm having kind of like a you know, something like this, I know I've been on this planet for a little while. I know that the hardest thing is to start the engine. Once you start the engine, man, there's momentum, and you just keep going. And so just rocking up in the gym and thinking to yourself, yeah, I'm going to mess around with something else today. And once you start messing around, all of a sudden, like, damn, it's already been an hour, man. I still want to do something else. And that's how you kind of get it all kind of started. So that's how I did it. Out of these two exercises that I did today with the split squats and the wide stands, I think, you know, the one exercise that's really caught my attention is the wide stands. You know, for somebody that likes to narrow stance squat, somebody that, you know, really wants that type of squat, a high bar, narrow stance, ATG squat, I really think there is some value for me to explore working with wide stance. You know, one thing that keeps racing around in my head, man, is this idea, you know, Louis Simmons. If you can squat wide, if you're strong in a wide stance squats, it's going to carry over to your narrow as well. But the opposite is not true. If you're strong in the narrow, you're not going to be strong in the wide. And that's my experience. My experience is the latter, right? So I'm obviously my primary squat is the narrow. I am feeling very, very weak in the wide. So I did 5 sets of 10 with 100 kilos wide. And I don't even know, like, I haven't taken enough videos of it, but maybe that is competition standard. In fact, now that I think about it, probably is, like, because I've seen some shockers. Whether it's a competition standard kind of depth. But I think there is something to be had about it. Now, straight away, I want to say I feel like there's a lot more muscle involved in wide stance squats, but that's because it's uncharted territory for me. So, like, I'm experiencing all sorts of different pulling muscles in my hips, in my groin, all that stuff. So I feel like this is something to be explored. The same kind of goes for the bench. Even though the bench, you know, with Louis Simmons and what he kind of believed, was basically based on a lot of, you know, geared lifting, you know, bench shirts and whatever. And so, you know, when you go wide, you know, there's a lot of, you know, interviews of him saying really bench press is all about triceps. It makes sense when it's all about triceps when you got the bench shirt to take care of the bottom portion of the lift. But still, even for a raw lifter, I think if you change it up, go wide, like I'm doing wide benching now, it's a different load, it's a different feeling, it's a different kind of tightness throughout the upper back. It's just a different existence. And so I think that same can be said for squatting, you know, change it up. So I reckon I'll mess around with wide stance squats as well. I don't know how frequent I'm going to do it. Obviously, my mind is in the pin squats, you know, back squat, pin squats, front squat, pin squats. I want to continue to do that, do my block pulls. But, you know, finishing off with a session with a little bit of, you know, not so tiring, it seems. Wide stance squats, I think there's some benefit for me there. I really do. Just to engage those muscles as well. It'll be interesting to see how my body reacts to it. I feel like I'm going to be sore tomorrow in the adductors. Now, like, I know back in the day when I would squat like twice a week, once a week, you know, you would go away from squatting for like 6 days or whatever, and you come back and you do your whatever 5x10 or whatever the program you're kind of thinking about, and then you'd be sore for a couple of days in the adductors. Like, the adductors were always the ones who give me the most amount of trouble. Now that I'm kind of doing these wide stance squats, it's like even standing at the top of the rep, you're like, man, I'm feeling these adductors. They are really on the map. So here we go. So I don't know whether it's probably a bad angle or whatever, but I think I'm hitting parallel or whatever. But it's interesting, like, I'm not stopping there because I want to. I'm stopping there because it's the end of the road, man. Like, I feel like my adductors are literally just stopping me. I can't get further. I probably could get further, but then I would compromise the lower back positioning. I'll probably round. So it's an interesting thing, you know. Trust me. I'm looking at this and I'm trying to hold back vomiting. I really don't like how that looks. But yes, I'm going to swallow my pride and understand that there is a weakness there to be trained. And that's how I'm thinking. Appreciate all of you guys on Patreon. Special thanks to the fellas on the screen there. Thank you for the support last few videos. So many nice positive comments. Yesterday's video I kind of let loose a little bit. It wasn't targeted to any of you guys. It was basically the cameraman and I were kind of chatting on the phone, and we were talking about not just weightlifting, we were talking about all sorts of things, about, you know, economy, about projections, about the world status and whatever. And, you know, when we hung up, I continued thinking about this, and I continue to think about when people say you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. That's where it stemmed from. So a few of you guys have kind of messaged me saying, is this, you know, reply to me? It's not, fellas. I would never do anything like that. It's just when my thoughts kind of get together and some neurons kind of bounce off each other, and I let it rip like that. So no hate towards anyone. This is just literally me opening up my mind, what I think about, you know. So that was it. Anyway, guys, appreciate all of you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.